Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Quack&Co, the channel where everything is under 10 minutes all the time, every time, and today I'm doing a video series, continuation of a series that I haven't done in a while, why I'm getting rid of it. It's a specific single look at a single game in which I go a bit more into detail on why I'm getting rid of that game, a game that I'm generally conflicted on, or it wouldn't be a very interesting video, and today's game, as you might imagine, or would be very confusing if it weren't, it's Zombicide Invader. Why I'm getting rid of Zombicide Invader, why this game is leaving my collection. Now, the short version, in case you want to skip the entire rest of the video, is because I prefer other Zombicide games in the series, and this one is losing out to those games. That's the very short version. You can skip the rest of the video if that's all you want to know. I prefer Black Plague, I prefer, I prefer Marvel Zombies, I prefer Undead or Alive, although that one I'm the least certain on because I only have one play under my belt of that one, but that one play makes me think that these three systems, and technically Green Horde as well, are all games that I prefer over Zombicide Invader despite enjoying Zombicide Invader. The rest of the video is why. Why do I enjoy those games more than this one? And there are a few reasons, and we're going to go through all of them. They are not ranked in order of importance, they're ranked in order of whatever comes to mind first. The first is the art. I don't love the art of Zombicide Invader. It's my least favorite art. It feels least like a Zombicide game. Zombicide games in general have this over-the-top cartoonish artwork that I tend to enjoy, and it may not be your cup of tea, and to that end, I appreciate that this exists. But this feels like a strong difference from that in a way that I prefer the original. I prefer the over-the-top cartoonish of Zombicide 2nd Edition, although I prefer Invader to 2nd Edition. I prefer the over-the-top cartoonish of Black Plague, of Green Horde, of Marvel Zombies, and of Undead or Alive. There's a specific look that those games are going for that works for me. Zombicide Invader is nice, it's fun, but this doesn't pull me in quite as much, and realistic art is not something I mind necessarily, and this isn't necessarily realistic, but it's more realistic. It's just a question of a particular game, a particular genre, and I find the cartoonish over-the-topness works for the Zombicide series. That is my least impactful reason. Theme-wise, I'm kind of okay with Invader. I don't necessarily think it's my favorite one. It's definitely not my favorite one. In fact, going through the theme preferences as far as my most to least favorite themes of all the Zombicides I've played, kept, or owned, or whatever, Marvel Zombies will be at the top. I have an affinity towards the Marvel characters. I like the world that I've spent the past 10 years watching, and so Marvel Zombies definitely gets points for hitting that theme out of the park. From there, it's going to be Black Plague. I really enjoy the medieval theme. It's boring, it's a trope that's used again and again and again, but I like it. It's a classic trope, it's a trope that works, and I like shooting arrows into a crowd, loading up my crossbow, unleashing my swords. As soon as you introduce the guns to the mix in any form of more modern theme, I find that the question usually devolves to, why am I not just using a gun? So it's going to be Marvel, it's going to be then the medieval theme from Black Plague and Green Horde. From there, it's going to go to Undead or Alive, the Wild West theme. I do like the Wild West theme. It's not used as often as I would like in board games, at least not compared to a space theme, and I like the implementation of zombies within it, the Gatling gun on top of a wagon as you roll it around. It does have that problem with now you have guns in the mix, but who knows. And then from there it's going to be Invader. Invader will come in at 4th, still not my least favorite. The modern Zombicide will be my least favorite as far as a theme. I don't have a firm picture as to why. A lot of classic a lot of classic tropes are done with modern zombies, but for whatever reason, it's my least favorite implementation of the Zombicide theme. So I don't mind the space theme, but it is my 4th favorite from all of those. So I guess it's still lowest on the totem pole. I think the biggest reason for me, though, comes down to a few different aspects, that some problems persist in other Zombicide series, and others are specific to Zombicide Invader. Now, for whatever reason, whenever I think Zombicide, I always say Marvel first instead of Zombicide. It ruined the series for me. The thing that's kind of a problem in everything except Black Plague is the variation of zombies. In fact, Invader is probably the highest ranking after Black Plague as far as zombie variation. If you want variations not within the abominations themselves, but if you want variations of the actual zombie hordes that you're facing, Black Plague and Green Horde, especially when you combine the two of them together, give you the greatest differences and implementations. I like having different types of zombies to deal with. I like having the Deadeye Walkers who are shooting arrows down the hall, the wolves who have 3 activations. I like having the rats that can run underneath hedges or pikes or whatever. I like having these spirits that wander around. There's a whole bunch of different options for the types of zombies past the basic walker, runner, and fatty, and I like the variation that they give you. It's a lot of fun, especially when you have a giant dragon swoop down on the board, although that's more abomination than zombie type. But there's a ton of variations to the experience, and a lot of reason to have different types of things that pop up. Zombicide Invader does do a fairly good job of that. Fairly good job. It is better than all the other ones I've played, past Black Plague and Green Horde, but it still feels like a step backwards compared to Black Plague and Green Horde. They give you a variation, but I feel the variation feels less interesting, less innovative, and less impactful than having 3 activations or shooting 3 down the hallway. And so I like Invader better than Undead or Alive, better than Marvel Zombies, better than 2nd Edition when it comes to the zombie variation, but still less than Black Plague. Black Plague is still taking home the cup at the moment, although Marvel Zombies will likely take that over once it arrives, delivers all of that. And Marvel Zombies, by the way, Undead or Alive still has the complaint around that zombie variation. Marvel Zombies, on the other hand, I find what it does do is it gives you a lot more impactfulness as far as how often abominations pop up and how much those change the game state game to game. The abominations, otherwise known as heroes or zombie heroes, I find those are impactful enough and more common and more frequent in the way they add to the gameplay that it slightly makes up for the lack of zombie variation. And that brings me to the last reason that Zombicide Invader, and probably the most impactful reason, which is the difficulty level of the games. I've never lost a game of Zombicide Invader. I have never felt like I was going to lose a game. Maybe briefly for like a minute in a game I felt like I was going to lose, but I've never lost. I've never lost this game, and I like losing my Zombicide games. I don't like feeling absolutely punished and crushed, but I like feeling like there's actually a challenge at play. There's actual levels of difficulty, and that I have to actually tactically plan around what to do. Zombicide, at its core, is a beer and pretzels experience. A beer and pretzels game which you roll dice, you do things, you go ahead and just attack enemies, and that loses its allure if I feel that I'm just rolling dice and not making decisions. And if I feel like I can just have a cakewalk through the zombie hordes and not have to worry about what I do, that means the Zombicide system fails for me. It might still be a game that you enjoy, but it fails for me if I don't feel the threat of death. I don't actually like losing inherently, I just like feeling like I can lose, and sometimes hand in hand with that means actually losing as well. I've lost Black Plague. I think my win rate in Black Plague is around 40%, which is right where I like it. It means I walk into every game not knowing how it'll play out. As Marvel Zombies, I've played only 2 games. I've won 1, I've lost 1. That's a dead on 50%. And Undead or Alive, we lost it, but we lost it at the very last second on the very last move. We absolutely could have won. That is where I like my Zombicide to be. Every single game of Zombicide Invader I have won. I've tried ramping up the difficulty, I've tried adding abominations, I've tried adding various this, that, and the other to the system to make it more difficult. And I've gotten tips from people on how to make it even more difficult, and those are entirely possible that will work. But this is where we start moving to the fact that there's only so many Zombicide games I can have in my collection. Is it possible that I can continue to house rule, to tweak Marvel's, there we go again. Is it possible I can house rule and tweak Zombicide Invader to be the difficulty level that I need it to be in order to be a game that I would keep in my collection? Very possibly. Do I love the mold mechanic? Do I find that to be an interesting implementation of the way zombies spawn and the way the game escalates? Yes, I think it's very fun watching the rooms get destroyed, the walls fall down, more zombies popping up. I think Invader does a lot of things well. But the Focused Fire destroys the abominations for me. I don't have any interest in it. They don't feel difficult enough. It feels like you can always take them down with health of 3 and just taking them down, tearing them, destroying the abominations. The zombies don't feel difficult enough. The game does not feel like it presents a challenge. And so Zombicide Invader, for all the many merits I could give you as to why it's a good game worth owning, and I think it is a good game worth owning, it's not the same difficulty that I wanted of a Zombicide experience. And with 3 or 4 other Zombicide games that I do like and will already have to make the difficult choice as to which of those stay in my collection and which ones don't, there's only so hard I'm willing to fight to make Zombicide Invader stay in my collection. And that is why it's finally leaving. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Quack&Co, where less time watching means more time playing.